Hello, and welcome to another Pokemon type tier list. This time, we're going to be looking at fighting types, the burliest, the beefiest type that there is out there. And I hope that you're excited for it, because I'm excited for it too. We're going to be going in reverse generation order, and starting, of course, with Urshifu, the star Pokemon of the, not the Crown Tundra, the Isle of Armor expansion pass for Pokemon Sword and Shield. And I think I'm not anti-Urshifu by any extent. I think that it's a pretty decent design, and the stance thing is pretty cool. How, there's the dark type that's got some properties, and then the water type that's got other properties. It's a fun gimmick. It's an interesting enough concept, but as it stands, Urshifu just strikes me as sort of like an odd basic design. It benefits from the fact that you have the opportunity with the DLC to sort of go on this journey with it and to work with it and learn how it is and sort of make decisions based off of it. It benefits a lot from that. There's definitely more of an emotional attachment there than there is to a lot of legendaries or mythicals in later generations. But the design in and of itself, I feel, is just kind of basic and bland. It just looks like it's a bear wearing a martial art uniform. And that's fine. It's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just kind of I could take it or leave it. It's fine. Zamazenta is honestly not as bad as Zacian. I think that the sword just makes Zacian look ridiculous in its crowned form, and in its base form it's just kind of basic. But I don't know, I feel like the shield-esque design on even the base form of Zamazenta is I don't know, it kind of just evokes a lion mane sort of. It's still not great. I'm still not a fan of later generation legendaries. But I don't think that Zamazenta is as bad as a lot of later legendaries, and it's definitely not as bad as Zacian, in my opinion. Phalanx is funny and cute, so it gets an immediate S tier for me. I love the concept of it being based on a phalanx, the sort of shield formation that they would use in ancient times. And the sort of centipede segmented aspect to it, sort of like a Wiggler from the Mario series. And seeing this thing waddle around in that one route in Sword and Shield was a very cute and endearing experience. It's such a funny design. I kind of wish that it was a secondary bug type. I know that I'm the bug type boy, so obviously I want that, but I think it would fit really well with Phalanx being a secondary bug type. It would suit the design of it very strongly to have it be fighting in bug. But I'm not going to hold that against it. I think that it's a very solid design. It's very funny, very cute, very endearing, very easy S tier for me. Grapploct, I will hold its typing against it because it really should be water type. I'm glad that it's fighting type, and that sort of grappling, wrestling based design works. It's good, but it should be fighting and water type. It shouldn't just be fighting type. For that reason, and that reason alone, nitpick, I know, but for that reason, I'm going to put it in A tier instead of, it might have been S tier if it had been water type, personally. Marshadow kind of suffers from the late generation mythical problem where it was only released by a mystery gift. There's no real story, there's no real personality to it. But I do think that Marshadow is very cute. And for that reason alone, I'm not gonna rag on it too hard. It looks like a little teddy bear. It's very huggable, eminently huggable, really. And it's endearing just based off of that. So I'm not going to put it below B tier. It is kind of basic, it's a shadow. Its name is Shadow, and it's a shadow. But it's really not that bad. I'm just not personally super attached to it. Passimian, I think, is pretty cool. Most fighting types are based off of military strategy or martial arts. And Passimian is sort of an odd exception where it's based off of rugby or American football, that sort of thing. It's an athlete rather than a martial artist. Not that martial artists aren't athletes, but you get what I mean. It's it's a competitive sport player and not a fighter. And I think that's kind of a fun and interesting interpretation, and moving forward, I think that it might be a really interesting way to take fighting types, have them be more akin to athletes rather than fighters, because, we have a long history of all sorts of different martial arts already represented in the fighting type. So that's a fun concept, and I think that it works pretty well. And just for the uniqueness of it being an athlete rather than a fighter, I think I'm going to give it an A tier. I think it does a lot for the fighting type as a whole. Crabominable, I want to like, I really do, but its claw arms are just weird and dangly, and I find them kind of off-putting. I don't think it's a D tier, and I think that Crabrawler is pretty cute and has a fun amount of personality, but Crabominable is just like a little bit uncanny, a little bit off-putting to me. But that's just my opinion. Pangoro, I like a lot of what's going on with Pangoro. It looks kind of like a mob boss, like an old school Yakuza movie type character. You know, it's got that coat with tails, and you know, it's got that like burly, brawly, scrappy type of energy to it, the way that fighting types are supposed to. I do like a lot of what's going on, and as an American, I'm obviously not very tuned into that kind of like punk organized crime culture in Japan, but like Pangoro is a very strong evocation of that, and even as someone who's only peripherally aware, I can see where they were going with it. Mianshao, I think, is pretty underrated. I don't see a lot of people really talking a lot about Mianshao, but it has that sort of like elegant, almost dancer-like quality to it. And insofar as, like I mentioned, making fighting types more akin to athletes rather than just pure martial artist fighters, I think that Mianshao kind of toes that line between, like, it's a fighter, it has that sort of like kung fu inspiration to it. It also has kind of like a little bit of a fan dancing or ribbon dancing element with the way that its body is constructed. It strikes me as a lot more like elegant and floaty rather than like decisive strikey, and again, it creates a fun contrast with a lot of other fighting types. So very similar to Passemian, I think that it does a lot for the type as a whole, and for that reason I want to give it some more credit. Throw and Sock, I have to admit that like they're kind of silly basic designs. I like them a lot. They remind me of like Ernie and Bert from Sesame Street, and that's always gonna like, I guess more like Elmo and Grover technically, but like they remind me of Ernie and Bert. That's just what they look like to me. They've got kind of weird Muppet faces, and I think that it didn't translate the best to 3D. I think that they look best in their 2D sprites. But like I have a hard time speaking negatively about these designs just because like they they look like Muppets. They look like Sesame Street characters. And so there's just that sort of like warm childhood fondness of it. Conkelder is, rather than an athlete or a martial artist, it's based off of a construction worker, you know, a job that's known for being very physically demanding, for requiring a lot of strength and durability to it. And so it's a pretty natural choice for the fighting type. I do think that it probably should have been like a part steel or a part rock type. I think that would have been well suited to it. And it kind of has that sort of Muppet face-like design, but again, like not being a pure martial artist is enough to differentiate itself as a fighting type that makes me appreciate what Conkelder was going for, even if I'm not the biggest fan of it necessarily. Lucario, part of me wants to put Lucario in D tier just to make people mad, but I don't really hate Lucario. I just don't really like it either. Like, it's got that aura thing, that more like spiritual side of fighting that it's going for, and it works well enough. It's, you know, I'm just not super into it. I used to play Lucario back in Smash Bros. Brawl, but I kind of fell out of favor with Lucario. I just feel like it's not the type of character that I like to play anymore. But yeah, there's nothing really wrong with it. I just don't have any real attachment to it. I just think it's odd. Medicham is a Pokemon that I forget exists a lot of the time. Meditite and Medicham are both kind of like obscure, hard to find Pokemon. I'm not even 100% sure. I think you find them on the Spirit Mountain in Hoenn. I forget the name of it offhand. But the place where you can find like Chimecho and some ghost types. And like, so because of its weird obscurity, I kind of forget about it a lot. I don't have anything against it. And again, it's similar to Lucario. It leans into that sort of like spiritual, mental side of fighting, which it's not bad, but I find a lot of things about the design to be kind of off-putting, like the big chunky thighs, and I don't understand if it's supposed to be clothes, if it's just supposed to be like weird big muscles. I don't really know necessarily what to do with it, but it's really not bad. I'm just a little bit I'm not a big fan. Hariyama, I have a hard time explaining why I like Makuhita and Hariyama so much. I'm just attached to them. I like the bulkiness and the sort of like friendliness of the designs. Like they look very huggable the way that Marshadow does. It was pointed out, I think it was in a Chugga Conroy video, that Makuhita just looks like a really, really fat Pikachu. And it totally does. It really absolutely does just look like a really, really fat Pikachu. But like I don't know, I couldn't say with certainty what it is that makes them stick out and have that fondness for me. But like I just like them. I just like the vibe that they're going for, the sort of like slower, heavier sumo style of martial arts, versus like all of the fighting types up until that point had been sort of like the fast, aggressive striking style, having like a more slow, thoughtful, defensive type of fighting type just like really resonated with me. And it was the first fighting type that I actually really liked and used pretty regularly in in-game playthroughs. Hitmontop I also like a lot. It's kind of an oddball. I mean, the whole Hitmon family is kind of oddball. I don't really understand how they're all supposed to be related, but like Hitmontop I like. It's a spinning top. It just spins around on its head. I think it's funny. And in the 3D models, it does the capoeira sort of like ready stance thing. I'm not very familiar with capoeira, but it evokes that, and it was always supposed to evoke that, but it was just sort of a spinning top. It just strikes me as like if Hitmontop, I mean, not to say that they don't come up with odd Pokemon designs nowadays, but I feel like if Hitmontop came out today, people would be like, Game Freak has gone too far. They're making Pokemon out of spinning tops. But because it's this weird relic of the past, people have just like come to accept Hitmontop as this sort of like odd group of Pokemon, and the Hitmons as a whole, and Tyrogan there as well. It's like it's such a weird sort of historical artifact in Pokemon that like I just like it, you know? And there's really not much more to it than that. Hitmonchan is too humanoid for me. I think I just have to be honest. I have to put it in D tier. It's the fact that it wears the like boxing uniform and has the boxing gloves. Like it just looks like a stylized human, and it's just kind of it's a little unsettling to me. I know I was just very complimentary of Hitmontop, but like because the three are so different, they're gonna have very divergent tiering. And Hitmonlee, I feel like, is kind of a perfect B tier Pokemon. Like it's Gumby, I guess. It just looks like Gumby. It's got the stretchy legs. It's, you know, kick focused rather than punch focused, so it has that duality with Hitmonchan. It's Hitmonlee, I don't dislike it. I don't feel icky about it the way that I do about Hitmonchan, but it's it's very like standard. Like it doesn't offend my sensibilities, but it's not great either. It's right there in the middle for me. Machamp is, again, kind of a weird case where it's like it's such a pure expression of like bodybuilder, like strength, strongman, like pro wrestler type almost with the championship belt. So it is such like a pure expression of fighting type, but it's just obviously the four arms take it away from being purely humanoid, but I think similar to Hitmonchan, it's just a little too human for me. And obviously the loincloth, that's like technically it's skin. And the championship belt is like when Pokemon wear clothes, it's just kind of weird. for me, and I know that I'm not alone in that opinion. But like, it's I wish that I liked Machamp more than I do, because like they are the original iconic fighting type Pokemon, you know. But it's just a little too humanoid, a little bit too off-putting to me, and I'm not. I really don't want to be hard on it, but like it just skeeves me out a little bit. And finally, Primeape. Primeape is this weird pig monkey chimera thing that I think, for me personally, does that thing where the whole is more than the sum of its parts. Like, the things about it, it's like it's got a pig nose, and it's sort of like a vague fluff ball body, but with like monkey arms and legs. It's like it doesn't really look like an ape, but it still kind of does, and it's got that like angry personality to it. It's got that sort of like scrappy, aggressive personality that fighting types have become sort of known for over the years, that I think it works overall pretty okay for me. And I have the memories of the anime where Ash's Primeape, goes through the professional fighting type boxing tournament or whatever, and that's like a very fond memory from the Indigo League anime days. So yeah, it's fighting type is such a weird mixed bag of Pokemon that it's hard to even really say where a lot of them belong in the tiers. But I think I'm gonna stand by these placements. I think that I'm satisfied with all of this, and I'm gonna stand by my placements. I think that this is how I feel about fighting types. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my tier placements. If you managed to make it to the end, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I've only got 2 more types left. I was hoping that I would be able to save Ghost type until October at least, but it's looking like that's not gonna quite happen for me. But yeah, I've got 2 types left, and we are going to go through a handful of other different tier lists, so look forward to that, and I hope to see you in the next one.